Previously on Gears.
Gears, balls, visual radio. What a weekend of sports, and of course it was the first Formula One Grand Prix of the season. Back-to-back races this coming weekend. We look forward to Malaysia, which should be something completely different to what we saw in Australia over the weekend. Joining us, as always, Gary Formato. Wasn't in studio yesterday, Gary. We missed you.
Yeah, sorry, I missed you guys too. I was on a flight as it started. Can you believe it? So a very frustrating flight back from Cape Town yesterday morning.
I can imagine. It's not as though you can ask the air host, I know, what do they call him now, cabin controller, to sit there and say, listen, can you just ask the captain and keep us updated?
I didn't want to know. I PVR'd it, so I watched it as I got home.
Awesome! All right. Well, listen, before we get into that, how was the racing down in Cape Town?
Mine was okay. I think they were fast, but we didn't have any results.
Well, you
I think I'm
one
getting
race?
old or something because I stalled in the line, on standing start. I've never done that before.
That's a bit
So that
weird.
was a bit stupid.
And then someone murdered you.
Yeah.
Who murdered you?
The guys from Rustenburg, and that's what they do. They just
They just murder you.
Yeah. So
They
anyway.
really don't have good reflexes. They don't realize, there's a stationary vehicle. I should try and go around it.
But I felt bad. I shouldn't have been there. Shouldn't have been parked in the road.
But you won the one race.
I did. I managed to win a race.
Yeah.
That was okay.
It's a start. I'm going to start this off here very controversially. You ready, Daisy?
Yes.
Making notes? Recording? Taking nothing away from Lotus and Kimi Raikkonen. Superb performance yesterday in Australia. I have to say that Felipe Massa lost the race for Fernando Alonso. Now, don't take it that I'm wearing just a Ferrari cap here. I'm wearing a cap of who should be a number one and who should be a number two in a team, and you should know what you're doing. Massa had a great weekend. Was actually qualified quicker than Fernando Alonso. But in the race condition, Fernando Alonso is the faster racing driver. And even though it is the first race of the season, you've still got to have a number one and a number two. And in my opinion, when Alonso went for the dive down the inside of Massa should have let him go, because Alonso would have been quicker and maybe chased the front pack of Vettel and Vettel at that stage. What I did notice after the pit stops and when Alonso got in front of Felipe Massa, Massa's performance went down. Now, whether that's a psychological problem or whether he just doesn't have the pace, I'm not entirely sure. But in my opinion, he allowed Ferrari to lose the opportunity of winning that race yesterday. That's how I saw it, Gary.
It's funny because I had the same conversation with somebody last night, just about that. Because, look, as you just pointed out, I mean, it's a fact that Massa is not quick throughout the distance. I think, look, over one lap, I think there's many drivers that can do the lap time, so it's very difficult to call, this guy's fast and that one who's slow or whatever. But in the race conditions, that's what's made Alonso great over the years, is that he's been able to produce the lap times throughout the race and put himself in some fantastic positions. Whether he would have won the race or not yesterday, if Massa led him through, I mean, listen, that's debatable. I think it's a bit of a 50-50 deal, that. But as you say, it works in sports like cycling, where you know exactly who everybody's riding for, and that's the number one rider, so to speak. It needs to work like that in Formula One, unless you've got two real hotshot drivers. And I mean, we all know that Massa nearly lost his seat last year, so I don't think it's unreasonable to say that Ferrari should have made the call earlier on in allowing Fernando Alonso through.
And the reason I bring this up is we all know that Felipe Massa is fighting for his career, and it's admirable to Ferrari to allow them to have finished racing. But then Fernando Alonso was stuck behind Felipe Massa and realized, if the guy's not going to let me get through, I'm going to change my strategy. Changed his strategy, came out ahead of Vettel, came out ahead of Massa. And then from there, Massa said, we got the strategy wrong, or they changed my strategy the wrong way. Felipe should have sat there and said, okay, no problem, but let me carry on racing. And his performance, yes, he finished a credible fourth, but it should have been a lot better.
No, you've got to keep it going throughout the distance. It's a race, and it takes how many ever laps, and you've got to produce on every single lap to get the result. But look, I think and it's only our opinion here, and Massa would surely disagree with what we're saying here.
Sure.
But that you're not going to be as fast as Fernando. Rather become the best number two out there, and you're going to make yourself so valuable to that team. And Ferrari, they're not going to replace you at the end of the year. So
exactly,
you've got to. It's a difficult one. You're a racing driver. You're a sportsman. You obviously believe that you're one of the best out there, but I think, look at a guy like Eddie Irvine. He played it perfectly with Michael Schumacher. He said, well, I'm the world's best number 2 driver. Yeah. And he stayed for many years in Ferrari. And if he hadn't left to go to Jaguar on his own, he probably would have stayed there for another couple of years, doing well, earning fantastic money, and having a chance to win Grand Prix on occasion. So that's the strategy I would probably adopt if I was Felipe Massa. But like I say, he would probably disagree with what we're saying.
Yeah, listen, Felipe Massa is a hell of a nice guy. He's humble. He's a fast racing driver. He wears most probably the world's greatest watch on his arm. So I like the guy. But yesterday I just sat there and went, at Ferrari, if you're going to make calls, make them even at the beginning of the season. If you lose the championship by 2 or 3 points, you're going to look back and sit there and say, we made the wrong calls.
Well, it's the kind of thing that a driver like Fernando Alonso or his management should actually have put in the contract. It should be in black and white, and everybody understands exactly how it works. And when the situation arrives, it's just the plan is put into action, so to speak. That's it. It shouldn't really be a debate. And I think that sometimes Ferrari succumb to the pressure of in particular, the British media. About their teams being allowed to race, being McLaren, Red Bull, and no team orders, which is rubbish. They all do. Of course. But Ferrari's got to ignore that. They're out there to win the title. I think it's the pressure's on. Fernando Alonso wants this title, and so do they, and they both need it very much. So you can't throw away any opportunity, even at this stage of the season.
That's how I saw it. Anyway, let's get back to the race. What a very, very unfortunate start. Nico Hülkenberg having fuel pump issue problems. Didn't start the race. Not something Sauber really can afford, no. Especially the opening couple of races, Gary. Even though we don't have tremendous rule changes for the year, these are the first few races are definitely the races where those sort of midfield teams, even lower teams, have opportunities to get very valuable points.
No, absolutely. And what happens is obviously the bigger teams progress at a quicker rate, because they can, and the gap develops throughout the year. So. And also having Gutierrez in the team, a rookie driver, the results were going to be short anyway. So they needed Hülkenberg up there. But, that's motor racing. You've got to get everything right. It's part of the game. You've got this car with, thousands of components that need to last and work well for you to perform. So a tough break for them. It would have been great to see. I think that car, may have been one of the surprises of the day.
It could have been. It was just unfortunate we didn't see Hülkenberg. Let's look at the people that were a little bit disappointing. Pastor Maldonado. Yes, we do know that the Williams is a very, very difficult car, and they seem to have sort of. Whatever updates they brought, it seems to be going in the wrong direction. But Maldonado cannot afford to make those kind of mistakes. You can't just sit there and say, car's undrivable, it's just a heap of this, that, and whatever. Gary, whatever you've got in your hands, you've got to try and do your best in it.
Well, you have to, exactly. And he's in a position now where he needs to perform, because I think, his Formula One career is also, it is in the balance. I mean, he's admitted so himself. But we've seen it with Maldonado. It doesn't surprise. He has a fantastic day where he's as good as anybody out there. And then some other days where you just wonder to yourself and say, well, how did he get that seat? And, yesterday was just obviously one of his off days. But the big thing there is, can Williams afford to have a driver like it in the team? You've got to have a guy that can produce. So, a tough afternoon. I think a lot expected of Williams as well going into the race meeting. Testing wasn't as bad. Yeah. And as you say, the developments didn't work for them. So I think very, very frustrating for all those drivers and the teams. Of course, the big problem now is that they go straight to Malaysia. Are they going to be able to sort it out before next week?
Yeah, I think Williams, I think they know what the problems are. And I mean, they haven't given either their drivers anything to be excited about, despite looking good when it came to testing. Let's go through the top 10. Romain Grosjean. I mean, if you look at Lotus, Kimi Raikkonen winning the race, I sat and thought Romain Grosjean is going to be right up there. Seemed to have a very indifferent kind of race. Said there might be something wrong with the car, but either way, got trampled.
Well, he did. I mean, when you get beaten by your teammate like that, it's not great. Yeah. So you start looking for an excuse, and hopefully it's a damn good excuse as well. But he says that he was following everybody for the entire afternoon, and of course, even though the car did handle well and did look after his tyres, being behind, losing a bit of aero, you are going to wear the tyres out, and sure. Perhaps that was the problem. So disappointing day for him. We've
got to say though, at least Grosjean and Perez had some racing amongst themselves. Perez in the McLaren, and those two last year were notorious for a couple of big incidents, and they kept it quite tidy.
Well, that was it. I think you're happy that they got to the end of the race with cars that were not damaged.
All right, let's go. Well, actually, we'll look at the top 10. Let's look at the back as well. Caterham, Charles Pick and Guido van der Gaard. Gary, that Caterham last year was really a car that had potential. Somewhere along the line, it seems to have gone backwards.
Yes, when Heikki Kovalainen lost his drive.
Perhaps
you need a top-line driver in your car to try and, the good drivers can drive around certain problems and so on. I'm not saying that the guys are bad, but perhaps a little bit inexperienced. So a guy like Kovalainen was able to carry that car, I believe, on a lot of occasions.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that really is showing that the car most probably wasn't as good as what we thought yesterday. Max Chilton had a great dice with Guido van der Garde. It was great to see that, and great to see these rookies managing to finish their races as well. My driver for the day yesterday was a guy called Jules Bianchi, finished ahead by just about a lap ahead of Charles Pic, Max Chilton, and Guido van der Garde. This kid has got great potential.
And that's what you need to do when you're in one of those cars. You know, it's only your entry into Formula One. You are there to prove a point, and the only way to do it is to beat your teammate like he did yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think Max Chilton's worst nightmare was Jules Bianchi arriving at the team. I've got to be honest with you, I wasn't convinced of Jules Bianchi either. You know,
Me neither.
It just shows you how you can get lost in the wilderness of those junior Formula. And when I'm talking about World Series and GP2 without the right equipment, you don't really shine. You seem to be as good as everybody else. But jumping into an F1 car seems to suit him, knows what he's doing, and I mean that's a massive gap to your teammate.
I think it's a terrific drive from him as well. Valtteri Bottas did finish his first race. Williams was very difficult, and Jules Bianchi actually wasn't that far behind him. Gutierrez finished his first race for Sauber, but I think that they expected more. It was a pity that Hulkenberg wasn't there. The Toro Rosso drivers, Danny Ricciardo retired, Jean-Eric Verne. This is a car, Gary, that I think given the right conditions, we're going to see some surprises from Verne and Ricciardo. I really think this Toro Rosso has got great potential.
I think so. Look, it is a well-funded team. There are good people there, and just remember that was the old Minardi team. So I mean, they've produced something well, and the team's working very well. And I think also the competition between the drivers is going to drive that team forward. I mean, they both know that if they want to step up into the Red Bull team proper, they're going to need to beat each other. So it's great to see that one developing.
Yeah, looking very good. Okay, that's looking outside the top 12 from yesterday's Grand Prix. We'll chat radio. We're talking Formula One. The first race of the season got underway yesterday. Albert Park. After a delayed qualifying session on Saturday, it was completed on Sunday morning, and we had a terrific victory for Lotus Renault's Kimi Raikkonen. With Gary Formato, we're going into the top 11. The reason the top 11, because we have to talk about the team and the drivers that finished in 9th and 11th. Jenson Button in 9th. Sergio Perez in his debut for the McLaren team in 11th place in a decidedly indifferent looking and speed-wise McLaren Mercedes. Gary, what has happened?
Well, only they know, but what a disappointment. You know, it just shows you how much you can hide in pre-season testing as well, you know, because the car didn't look that bad. Get to the first race and they're absolutely nowhere. So, I mean, even talk of them reverting back to last year's car, and so on, you know, a lot of things flying around there at the moment, but just disappointing for a team like McLaren. But, you know, we spoke about it at the end of last year once we heard the Lewis Hamilton announcement. You sort of feel as though McLaren have gone back into that 94, 95 era where things just weren't working out. They were in between engine deals. We know they're in the same position with Merck. You know, I just think that I don't think we're going to see them perform this year.
They're in a very precarious position. They've lost people like Paddy Lowe. That management structure doesn't seem to be the way that it is very much what we used to in the McLaren organization. I wonder what Ron Dennis is going to do, as though even though he's removed himself so much from the Formula One side of things, he's surely got to step in here and try and steer the ship.
I agree with you. You know, at the end of the day, Formula One is their business. You know, we know the road car business is going well, and they're producing fantastic cars there, and which he's obviously had a massive input into. But the Formula One team is the business, so to speak. So, you know, there's things that need to be done. There's no two ways about it. Restructuring, reorganizing. I think in all areas. You know, McLaren can come back. That's the one thing we can say about McLaren, is they certainly can make things right and get it back on track.
Well, I tell you, a guy like Sergio Perez goes from Sauber going into an organization like McLaren. He must be scratching his head saying, what have I done? But as you say, they will bounce back, but it's going to take them quite a way.
Yeah, certainly. Look, I think from Perez's point of view, he needs to start beating Jenson Button. He doesn't need to finish where he did yesterday. But I mean, he looked as though he was driving the Sauber in different colours yesterday. Same sort of position than he would normally have been racing in. Same kind of strategy, alternative, because the car wasn't as quick as the front-running car. So I think he was certainly expecting a lot more from the team. And I think he'll be certainly disappointed with the whole results. I mean, it's a massive opportunity, but you know, as a driver, you want to be up there, you want to be winning races, and that's obviously why you'd go to a team like McLaren. Yeah,
first race of the season, 2 points for McLaren, not where they would have expected to see. Just amazing watching the race, watching other drivers just flying past that McLaren, passing as though they really were mid to back marker kind of pace.
Well, that's exactly what they had. They had midfield pace. That the car was nowhere. In those conditions throughout the weekend, the kind of conditions you'd expect to see Jenson Button really thriving in. The tyre degradation was going to be at a high. Also, he's very good at looking after his tyres. So you'd expect Jenson and McLaren to have done well, but there was just nothing there. And the driver can only do what he can do with the car.
Yeah. We've spoken about Romain Grosjean. He finished in 10th place yesterday. Then a team yesterday, and specifically the one driver, they only finished 3 seconds apart, but that doesn't really tell us the story. The two Force India Mercedes drivers, Adrian Sutil, Paul de Resta, a team that is in a very unstable financial position. Don't let anybody kid you. They really are. Need these kind of points, need the performances that they see, and need the TV time that they got yesterday. Adrian Sutil yesterday, one of the stars of the show. What a return to Formula One.
Unbelievable. I mean, after a year away, a lot of controversy surrounding him as well. I mean, with that incident that he had a couple of years back. So I was so happy to see him back in Formula One. Firstly, I think he is a talent. If you look at how he competed against the rest of previously, it was very, very good, certainly towards the end of the season. And he sort of picked up exactly where he left off. He was quicker than the rest in the race, although his qualifying did allow him to use a different strategy, which possibly worked out better in the race. But nonetheless, to see him up there leading the Grand Prix for a while and racing with the people that he raced against yesterday was fantastic. So, as you said, good for the team. These are the kind of results you need to in order to just give yourself a bit of a boost and hopefully attract some finance into the team and carry them forward. I'd hate to see them start going backwards now, which unfortunately may be the case. But both the team and the drivers doing a great job.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because as we get further up, we'll talk about development and the amount of availability, money availability for the top teams, whether or not they can continue forward. The one thing about Sutil yesterday, when he was racing right up at the front there with the likes of Kimi, with the likes of Vettel, with the likes of Alonso, he looked in a very comfortable space, Gary, whereas other drivers might have cracked. Sutil really looked strong.
He did, and my thoughts yesterday while watching that were, a top team's certainly got to be looking at this guy now, because it's not easy to find top line drivers. If you're a top team, everybody talks about it and says, well, we'll just do this and we'll get that one, but it's hard. And I think a guy with his talent certainly deserves a shot in a front-running team. But let's see how it goes for the next couple of races. Can he do it consistently? Yeah, that's the key. If he can, I wouldn't be surprised to see people start knocking around. And like I said, just getting back to his whole off-track issues and whatnot, and having lost his drive, because I felt it was pretty unfortunate. I don't think the guy's a bad guy by any stretch of the imagination, and somebody I think had it in for him there. So I was just really happy to see him back on the grid.
Yeah, great to see. And Paul de Resta managing to claw back and get those points as well. They finished 7th and 8th, so a great result for Force India. Then let's look at the team that finished in 6th and in 3rd position on the podium as well. The current champion, 3 times world champion, Sebastian Vettel, finished in 3rd position after starting in pole. Mark Webber starting in 2nd and finishing in 6th position. If you looked at the two performances, Gary, of the drivers, it was though they drove for different teams.
Exactly. Look, I think Webber's big thing was the start, of course. Once you lose all the position at the start, you get stuck in all the dirty air. Your afternoon is going to get very difficult, and it changes the way your tyres work. We spoke about Grosjean just now. The same thing would have happened to Webber. So he just made his life difficult. But we've seen Webber battle to get off the line often, too often. Yeah, and it just didn't work for him yesterday. So he needs to sort that out. But having said that, talking about Red Bull, I mean, I for one certainly thought they were the favourites to go out there and win the race. But after 7 laps, into the pits for new tyres, it just shows you they haven't got things, running as smooth as one would think.
Which I think is also great for the sport.
Yeah.
We've got to say that. And Red Bull are the team to beat. We all know that. They dominated in the qualifying yesterday, but in the race conditions, things changed quite dramatically for them. So I think it's just great for the sport as well. Looking at the Mercedes team, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, not bad qualifying on the weekend, but we just saw the same kind of problems with the Mercedes team that we saw over the last couple of years, that in race pace, even though Lewis Hamilton really wrung the neck out of that Mercedes, it just does lack a little bit of the performance, and was probably down to the tyre wear as well.
Yeah, exactly, which then obviously translates into the fact that the aero maybe not right, the chassis is not right, and that's obviously why you're getting the tyre wear that you're getting. So a tough afternoon. I think Lewis, I'd picked him to also surprise during the Grand Prix. I think he certainly has dragged Merc up a little bit. I think the result, if you look at it over a race distance, really managed to to keep it in there. And okay, 5th place from qualifying third, not the end of the world, but again, it's an organisation where they've had a lot of changes and so forth, and I just hope that's not going to influence the results on the track, and I hope that they can build on what they've done so far and actually get that car forward. There's a lot of good people in Mercedes-Benz. They actually don't have an excuse not to perform. I mean, they've probably got one of the richest teams in terms of talent and technology, technical ability, sitting right there in that office. So, they need to start producing now.
Yeah, very much so. Nico Rosberg, I've got to say, I was very impressed for the amount of time that he was on the track till eventually another gearbox hydraulic kind of malady put him out there. A problem that Mercedes are going to have to sort out, because he had a problem like that in the free practice as well. But Rosberg wasn't that far behind Lewis.
No, he wasn't. In the beginning, in fact, of the race, he was right there, with Lewis, and I think he can certainly take a bit of confidence from that. I think a lot of people in the paddock talking about how Lewis Hamilton is going to absolutely trounce Rosberg. So Rosberg's done well, first of all, with Michael Schumacher and now with Lewis Hamilton. So I think probably having to have raised his game slightly this year to compete with Hamilton.
Yeah, well, there we go. Unfortunate end for Nico Rosberg. Looking at the Ferrari team, Massa and Alonso, we've spoken about them at length, but Gary, they will be much happier start of 2013 than they were start of 2012.
Oh, that's for sure. I mean, it was a real dog they had to work with last year. Still, Fernando produced fantastic results. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, I think that they are going to certainly be in this championship fight. Fernando, again, yesterday off the start line, made up positions like he always does. So, we know what he's capable of doing. And there's no doubt he's going to use that Ferrari to full effect this year. And, he will win more races than he won last year. So I think this championship this year is going to be a hell of a lot closer than it even was last year.
Yeah, I agree. And take nothing away, Massa was really on it this whole weekend, but also gives us an indication, Gary, of the ease or relative ease to driving this 2013 car than there was in the 2012.
Yeah, when you have a car that's that's difficult to drive, you sometimes see a guy like Massa. The gap between him and Alonso was quite big. Alonso being able to get more out of the car, maybe hustle it around a little bit better. So yes, that's the evidence that the car is a lot better, and the fact also that Massa outqualified Fernando Alonso, which was pretty good.
Yeah, very, very good. And then finally, Kimi Räikkönen. Just the coolest guy. Yesterday, I loved that podium. We had 6 world titles between the 3 drivers on there, and all of them had a sip of the champagne first before they sprayed it around.
Yeah.
This, to me, is what Formula One is about.
Exactly. Stop wasting, guys. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Share amongst your friends, but after you've had some.
Yeah.
But what a terrific victory. The guy... and I got to agree with what David Coulthard said yesterday. And he said, Kimi should have a lot more than just the one title that he's got.
Yeah, I think it's because the team at Lotus are allowing him to just be Kimi, and they accept the fact that he probably lives his life a little bit different to the rest of the Formula One field. And, at the end of the day, when you're happy in your environment, you're going to perform. So, I think that leeway is actually working to his advantage and to the team's advantage. So, well done for them for managing Kimi the way they are. It's working well. And in all honesty, he didn't look very tired when he got out that car yesterday. A lot of people saying, well, he doesn't train. He's a little bit uncommitted to his sport. But there was absolutely nothing wrong with him yesterday. And I think just showed his class as a driver, no matter what he does off the track, as a racing driver. I mean, he's nothing short of world class.
Yeah, he really is. This is where I come back down to what we were talking about with Force India in terms of Lotus, Renault up against the likes of Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes. Do they have enough funding to allow them to develop throughout the rest of the season? This is what worries me.
Well, it is a big question mark that hangs over that team. But, coming out and winning the first Grand Prix of the year, I think certainly attracts a lot of support, and may generate the sort of funding and support they need to keep on developing that car. So also a team that's got great people. Technically, they can produce the car. We saw it yesterday morning. I think they are certainly going to be better than last year. And at the end of the day in racing, if you can look after your tyres the way that car did yesterday, they do have something. They've got an ace up their sleeve there.
Yeah, that's for sure. This coming weekend, Gary, Malaysian Grand Prix, we're expecting either massive rain or incredible heat. Tyres still sort of like an unknown to a lot of the teams. But I mentioned it yesterday on the show, sitting and saying Ferrari and Lotus seem to be so far the best when it comes to looking after their tyres. Red Bull not far behind, especially in the hands of Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah.
But qualifying is going to be critical.
It's going to be critical, although a track where you can overtake. But I think, as we've spoken about twice already today, you want to get yourself into that clean air. So as far up the front of the field you can get, you've got more chance of that happening. So, qualifying, as usual in racing, is at a premium. I think the tyre wear is still going to play a massive part in the Malaysian Grand Prix next weekend. And, that's one of the great things about F1 now. And before the teams all get the tyre wear under control, it certainly makes for fantastic racing. So, if it's going to be the case, well, then, bring it on. I think we can have a great race.
Yeah, I think we're into a great race, great season as well. And Daisy's out of our pool is leading the Super Brew.
Have you played? Remember the last time we tried that? It didn't really work out.
We played the Fantasy League. No, it didn't work. You and I were kicked off.
Yeah, we were quite bad.
We were very bad. Well, so far, Daisy's whipping Maz and I. Maz is whipping me. And Maz doesn't even know half of the drivers' names.
Maybe Daisy read the rules of the game, so she knows how
it
works.
No, she just chose Lewis Hamilton for all of the positions and somehow got it right. I don't understand how that works.
That's such a lie.
Yeah. Anyway, so there we go. That's a look at the Australian Grand Prix. We will have more Formula One news, of course, during the course of this week. We'll have our full review on Wednesday because Thursday is a public holiday and Friday's a day off for the Gears team. So Wednesday we'll give you more information about this coming weekend's Malaysian Grand Prix. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, cheers.
Have a great day.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time.
Beautiful.
Gears with Sasha Martinengo on bulls.co.za.